Yes.
Okay.
Currently recording.
Then you can download the file and all that.
I practiced earlier.
You'll be a pro.
Yes. And let's see. I was thinking towards the end when we do questions to have, well, just depends on how many people actually end up joining. But if we have like a lot of people, to maybe just have them enter their questions in the chat.
I think that sounds good.
As many as possible. Okay, so when I share my screen here, I'm hoping that everyone will be able to see. Now that I'm not the host, I'm hoping it'll still kind of dominate the screen, maybe.
Yep, looks good.
Looks good. Okay. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, we can go ahead and get started. I'm going to collapse this. All right. So, hi, everybody. My name is Anj, and I'm the Grants and Outreach Manager for Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition. And today I'm going to chat with you about our new Thrive Grants program. So I will move through this presentation rather quickly. You don't need to take notes necessarily because all of this information is going to be accessible through the thrivegrants.org website. So you'll be able to refer back to it. And I'm also here as a resource if you have any questions. But I'm going to move along rather quickly because we just have a lot to cover. And I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions towards the end. All right, so to start, I want to talk about how we were able to create this program, and it was through our partners. We got funding from the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts, which was established in 1987 in accordance with Andy Warhol's will. So the mission of the foundation is the advancement of the visual arts. So I say they're doing pretty good. They're dishing out a lot of funds to a lot of different arts organizations, statewide and internationally as well. So within the foundation umbrella, there is the Regional Regranting Program, which was established in 2007. And the purpose of the program was to recognize and support the movement of independently organized, public-facing, artist-centric activity that animates local and regional art scenes, but that usually lies beyond the reach of traditional funding sources. So the foundation created this regranting program and gave grants to nonprofit visual arts centers and used those centers to administer those funds to creatives within their communities to push forward the visual art scenes of individual communities around the nation and internationally. And those funds are prioritizing experimental projects and collaborative undertakings. So that's where it starts getting interesting. So the Regional Regranting Program, when COVID-19 hit, they decided to redistribute those funds for emergency grants. So they took their 16 original regranting partners and they dispersed $1 million in funds in emergency grants. And then about 8 months into the pandemic, they doubled their number of regranting partners. And so now we are one of 32. So when they doubled their number, we got included in that. So you may remember last year, we dished out emergency grants for the first time, and that was due to the Regional Regranting Program. So now we're taking those funds and we've created Thrive Grants. So what exactly are Thrive Grants? This presentation, I'm going to talk to you about generally what they are, what we require, who is not eligible. I'm also going to give you some examples of other projects that have come from other regranting partners, talk about frequently asked questions, and then open the floor for questions. So in a nutshell, Thrive Grants is 12 grants in the amount of $5,000 each. So there's going to be 12 awardees each year that get these grant funds. And the application for this year is June 1st. So this opportunity, we believe, really builds upon our existing dedication to support artist-led initiatives and our belief in the power that for artists to create a positive impact in our communities. So this new Thrive Grants program really does encourage artists to take risk and engage audiences in new ways. We really believe artists throughout Oklahoma have the creativity and the potential to push the boundaries of our state's visual culture, and this fund will offer them the opportunity to thrive in ways not previously possible. So what are the requirements? We require the projects for Thrive Grants to have a focus on the visual arts, so a central focus on the visual arts, which is very broad. These projects need to be public facing, and they need to take place in Oklahoma, and they need to be completed before the end of the award year. There will be an event at the end of the award year, and there will be presentations taking place. So the lead organizer also needs to be available to present during that event, and it will be in July. For collaborators, the lead organizer or applicant will serve as the lead organizer for the project, and that person will also need to reside in Oklahoma, as well as the majority of collaborators. So what that means is, say there's 6 of you, and you're the one who's applying for the grant, as long as 3 out of 5 of your collaborators reside in Oklahoma, you're technically good to go. And also the lead organizer needs to be 21 years of age or older. So that's pretty broad. So I want to kind of talk about who is not eligible to apply, because that can kind of narrow things down for you as well. So if you're an artist who's currently enrolled in a MFA, BFA, or seeking enrollment in the arts during the award year, you are not able to apply as a lead organizer, but you can be a collaborator. So that will not stop you from participating in some form. If you are a 501c3 organization, like nonprofit or for-profit corporation, you are not eligible. But if you're an artist with an LLC, you are eligible to apply. And I also want to make note that if you're an artist with an LLC or without, and you are working with a nonprofit or some sort of institution or organization within your community, that's fine. It's all about where the funds are going. So the lead organizer is the person, the individual who's receiving these funds for this project, but it's completely okay to work with non-people entities within your community. Artists who are unable to attend the awards presentation or unable to present during the event. So we're going to have an event at the end of the award year. There's going to be presentations. It's going to be a grand old time. We're also going to introduce new awardees during that time. So we just need to make sure that you're available in July to present your projects. That is a requirement. You're not eligible if you don't reside in Oklahoma. This is about Oklahoma's visual art culture. And this isn't applicable just yet, but in the future iterations of this grant program, if you're a successful applicant and you get awarded this year, you can't reapply with the same project idea or a new iteration of that old idea. So what exactly are we looking for? So I'm going to go over these briefly. These are also on our website, but career altering potential. So what does that mean? Is this the obvious next step for the artist in their career? Is this proposal extremely ambitious? And when we say artistic merit, what does that mean? So you're going to get a lot of points if this proposal demonstrates artistic excellence or has cultural significance. If a lot of the materials you're submitting really back up your artistic excellence and community impact. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but also we just want these projects to be public facing and potentially addressing a significant community need and ability to complete the project. So what that means is the proposal has been extensively researched. There's a lot of evidence that proves that you can complete the project, like a fully researched budget, project timeline, etc. And these are extra credit categories, but I do want to state that when we say extra credit, it doesn't mean that, oh, well, you don't really have to do it. Ultimately, if you don't do it, someone else will. And our community does need projects that emphasize these categories. Now, for SERV's underrepresented region, it makes sense that this would be extra credit because we're going to get a lot of projects probably from the greater metro areas like Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and that is fine. But if you happen to be in Enid or Pauls Valley, like you're going to get extra credit just for being in these non-central metro areas in Oklahoma. And does your project include Native people or people of color? So if you're collaborating with Native people or people of color, you will get extra credit for that. And we do want to encourage projects that are inclusive and progressive and diverse. And collaboration is huge too. So like I said, even though it's extra credit, it is a big proponent. We do believe collaboration will strengthen creative ideas and it will boost creative outcomes. Collaboration is key a lot of the times to really strengthen your outcomes for your projects. So you don't have to collaborate, but you definitely can. And you can collaborate with individuals or institutions, organizations, proponents in your community. It really is pretty broad who you can collaborate with. And so everything I just explained is on the proposal scoring matrix, which is on the thrivegrants.org website. So you can get to that website from ovacok.org, or you can just type in that web address on the top. It's all available to you. And I do really recommend before you submit your project to read over the proposal scoring matrix and make sure you're hitting all these points. And it even breaks down like what's excellent, what's good, what's adequate, what's poor. So we really give you a lot of details on what the selection committee is going to be looking for. So this is the timeline. The little sun is where we are today during the free info session. And as of right now, we have a free office hour on May 21st. But that is actually already full, which is great. We're really happy that you all are utilizing these resources. But we do have another free office hour on May 26th that still has some available slots. And I do believe if we're seeing a need for another office hour, we can try to manage that. Application deadline is June 1st, so that's a little less than a month now. And winners will be notified no later than July 15th. So then the grant award period starts and ends in July of next year, 2022. And then we'll have award presentations and that will be announced once we get closer to the date. So here's just another visual perspective. So we're in May, you are here. These are the 2 office hours and here's your deadline. So we are fast approaching. So now I want to walk through some of the more detailed kind of difficult things that come from applying for projects and creating proposals. So just so you're completely prepared and know what you need to start gathering. So what we're going to ask for in your submission is the lead organizer's contact information. We're going to want to know your impact region. We're going to want a 500-word project summary. We're also going to want, I think it's 250-word summary of your like desired outcome and community impact. Also, if you have any secured venues, if you don't, that's okay. But if you are listing venues, if you have any secured, you just want to indicate that in your application. Also, we're going to want bios, 250 words each from each collaborator and the lead organizer. So if you're collaborating with someone that's not just an individual, you could just put maybe like their mission statement, like if it's an organization, maybe a mission statement, and then like how they're going to be serving on the project with you, like what role they're going to be playing. So we just want to have a clear vision of how they're going to be participating in the project development. We're also going to want a detailed timeline and budget, which are definitely going to support your ability to complete the project if you've really thought this through and done your research. And then there's obviously the file upload segment of any application. So for the lead organizer, we're going to want their resume, CV, their artist statement, and relevant images and an image list. So if you have images that are relevant from other collaborators, that is fine too. Just indicate in your image list what collaborators, like just give us details on where those images are coming from and details about what's happening in the images so it can support your application. And now I want to give you just like a quick walkthrough. I'm not going to walk through the whole thing, but I want to show you what it looks like. There's the Thrive Grants application. So when you go to submittable, you're going to see everything I've just discussed, like what are Thrive Grants, how we're able to bring this about, and requirements. Everything I just talked about will be reiterated here in the application portal. Timeline. And here is just a more detailed version. So required application materials, like everything you're going to need. I highly recommend you look at this list and just prepare everything you need. So then you can sit down and just bust out that submission. And I'm not going to go through all of this because you've seen submission portals before. I'm going to go back to budget. So there is a section for budget where you're meant to upload a file. So you're not just going to type in your budget. So I did want to include this resource as well. This is a template for your budget. So when I say template, that means like you don't have to use it. You can use it. If you do decide to use it, there are notes in here that you will have to erase. These notes are just meant to be helpful and give you guidance. One thing with the budget is that we do want it to be balanced, which is going to mean that the income in should equal the outcome, like the expenses out. So if you get $5,000, which you will for this grant amount, then your expenses need to equal $5,000 as well. And there's also a section for like additional income. This is just a guide. You do not have to follow this to the T. Please modify this template to match your needs. But you don't even have to include additional income necessarily unless you want to. But if you do include additional income from another source, just make sure that the budget is still balanced. A good balanced budget is going to look really good to the selection committee. And as we go down, under expenses, I've added notes here. We do expect you to pay yourself for this. If you want to add a line for lead organizer and supporting artists, usually this is like 20 to 35% of the budget. Once again, that's just a guide. It's whatever feels right for your project. I will say if most of the budget is eaten up by paying yourself, that's just not going to look very good. And it's probably going to mean your project's not very ambitious. Go ahead. So this link is actually available on the thrivegrants.org website. Under requirements, it'll say we're required a budget. See budget template here. But if you have any trouble finding that, you can just let me know. So now I want to share some examples. So I was discussing the regional regranting program before, and those partners are funded by the Andy Warhol Foundation as well. And so they are administering grant programs very similar to ours. So their awardees will look different than our awardees, but this can give you an idea of, you know, certain projects that might get funded versus ones that won't. We are wanting you to push yourselves and do creative experimental things that really engage the public and meet community needs. So first we're going to check out Redline. So they're in Colorado and their fund is called Insight. So the Insight Fund. And there was one here I wanted to share in particular right here. Felt like it was pretty straightforward. So it's a collaboration, it's public facing, it's experimental, it's educational. It's meeting a need. So the project is called Thermopower. And I'm going to skip down here. So this project follows the story of the American pika, which is a small relative of rabbits and an indicator species for the climate crisis. And they live in the mountains of Western North America. So these artists came together and they created a blended video from a steerable online research camera together with satellite imagery, narration, and a score performed by by a classical chamber ensemble. And the project commingles creative, scientific, and technological approaches and animates a conversation on the role of technology in maintaining livable temperatures. So super interesting. It's completely accessible to the public. When I say they collaborated with the Atmospheric Research Center, so NCAR. They also collaborated with the musical ensemble and various artists to create this project. And it's honestly hard to imagine one person doing this all on their own. And that collaboration component really boosted their creative outcome here and created something great. So I just want to share one of those examples. I also want to share Grit Fun because there's a couple in here that made me think would be good examples. So this fund is actually out of Baltimore. It's called Grit Fund. They were actually able to give their awardees $7,000. That had to do with their administration fees. They didn't have as many as we do, so they were able to give more funding, which is awesome. This project stood out to me, these top two projects. So this one on the left is called Charm City Night Market by Chinatown Collective. Essentially, it was an artist collective that came together to create a component within their community. So it was an initiative founded by Chinatown Collective to celebrate the heritage of Baltimore's Asian American Pacific Islander community. It's based in Baltimore's historic Chinatown. The CCNM highlights the rich history and contributions of Baltimore City's first AAPI immigrant community and creates a platform for Baltimore's growing community. And so the Grit Fund ended up supporting a portion of the market that was visually art focused. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of collaboration going on there, and there's an artist collective. So that also brings my point back up about you can be an individual who's the lead organizer and say you end up working with people within your artist collective. As long as you're not applying as that nonprofit artist collective, if you are a nonprofit, you're good to go. And you can even say like, these are people within my artist collective, but I'm applying as the individual lead organizer. These are people I'm working with. That's just also a component of it, but you're not applying as the artist collective. And this project, the Afro Archives Project by Savannah Wood, it's interesting because it's also kind of modified. It's on the digital realm and it's not in person. I don't think that was a response. It might have been a response to COVID-19, but that's also something as far as Thrive Grants is concerned, because we are still in a pandemic. Sometimes we have to modify, and we are open to things being on digital platforms as well. So the Afro Archives Project is an online exhibition made in collaboration with the Afro-American newspapers. So a direct collaboration with a non-individual entity, the Afro-American newspapers, and 3 contemporary artists. So we had 3 artists working in tandem with these newspapers. So they ended up doing research in the Afro-American newspaper archives, which chronicled 127 years of Black journalism, culture, entrepreneurship, and resilience in Baltimore and beyond. Using their research, the artists made new work for an online exhibition. And Wood and the Afro staff supported the artists throughout the process, orienting them to the archive, facilitating the research, and assisting in production as necessary. So the reason I'm giving you these examples is because I want to show you how broad we are speaking, but we want these to be visually art focused, public facing projects. So I know I've thrown a lot of information at you, but I just want you to remember to keep it simple. I'm sure many of you have a lot of great ideas for your community. So just think to yourself, why this project? Why now? Why is it important to you? What are the core ideas behind your project? And what's your vision? What do you hope to achieve when it's all said and done? And how will you execute? So when you answer these simple questions, you're ultimately getting the framework to build a strong proposal and application. And the reason I showed you that examples was not to intimidate you. It was just to show you that there is such a wide variety of options and ideas to choose from. And now I just want to discuss some frequently asked questions, just so maybe we can knock out a few questions right off the bat. So some of these I've already answered. Let me take a sip of my tea real quick. So what are Thrive grants? I've already answered. What is the timeline? I've already shown you the timeline. Who selects the grant winners? So this is a great question. We will have a committee of 5 individuals that will include local artists, arts administrators, and someone from the regional regranting family. So someone like from the Grit Fund or the Insight Fund, like I showed you, people like that that are doing that within their communities, just somewhere else. How are the applications scored? Using the scoring matrix, which is on our thrivegrants.org website, which you'll be able to refer back to. We really lay it all out for you. What types of projects will be funded? It's a great question. I feel like I've generally answered it, but I want to read this response because I do like this response. The program really celebrates risks and artists that are willing to push their own boundaries. What that actually looks like will vary greatly, but could include non-traditional gallery exhibitions, a new art sign, publications, pop-up exhibitions, public art projects, performances, videography. The project must be mostly visually art focused is the only requirement there. Can I include artists outside of Oklahoma? Yes, you can. They just can't be the majority of your collaborators. Can the grant funds be used to pay myself or other artists? Yes, and we expect you to pay yourself for your time and efforts and creativity. Usually that's about 25 to 30% of the budget, but it's going to vary depending on your project. What if we are an artist collective? Already answered that question as well, but I will say again, yes, you can. You just can't apply as the artist collective. You apply as an individual, and then you name the people you're working with as individuals as well. What if you're an independent or freelance curator? Are you eligible to apply for the grant? Yes, you are still an individual in the art world. And as a curator, you probably know plenty of people that could hit the need for visual art and help you out in that way. So it already sounds like you'd be a great candidate because you probably have a lot of collaborators. I'm an artist with an LLC and profit off my business as a creator. Yes, you can apply. And I am a recipient of another OVAC program award. Can I still apply? Because I know we have some stipulations on how many awards you can get in a certain amount of time. Since this is a brand new program, we just want to remove the boundaries there. And at this time, we will not be requiring any stipulations for those who have won awards from OVAC in the past year. We actually also removed the requirement of being a OVAC member as well. So we just want to take it all in. All right. That was a lot of information thrown at you very quickly. I'm sure you have plenty of questions and I'm here to help. So feel free to write down my information. That's my number there and my email if you want to reach out to me directly. If you have really specific questions about your project that may not include other people in this chat right now, I do want to recommend you sign up for our office hours. There are still some openings on May 26th. And like I said, if those fill up really quickly and we see a direct need for more resources, that's definitely something I can look into. So at this time, I would like to open the floor for questions. And for those who maybe joined in a little late or something, the way I want to do this, since we have a lot of people on this chat, is for you to type your questions in the chat, and we will get to as many questions as we can before the end of the hour. All right. Okay, so I do have a direct message. I just want to make sure that all the message, well, I guess send your messages directly to me so I can make sure I see all the questions. So question from Liz Roth, the award year ends in July or December?
You answered that, thanks.
Say what?
You answered that after I wrote it, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Great, I'm glad I inadvertently answered a question. Are part-time students eligible? I'm pursuing a certification, not a degree. That is a great question. So it's meant to be very specifically directed towards students who are pursuing a degree in the arts. So even if you're a part-time student pursuing an art-centered certification or degree, you are not eligible. But if that certification has something to do with anything outside of the arts realm, you are eligible to apply. And that's just one of those things, one of the boundaries that we do have in place for this program. Okay. Next question is, does the permanence of the project matter? Great question. It does not. The project is meant to, as long as it's hitting all of the requirements, the project being ephemeral, I don't see being something that's going to hold you back from applying. In fact, that could be an interesting component, that it doesn't last forever. And I assume all the projects won't last forever. Some of them will be ongoing, some of them will be ephemeral, and I think that's totally okay, just as long as you're hitting all the other requirements, but that is not one of them. Okay. Oh, great, great. I'm glad that you're pursuing something that's not art-centric, so you can still apply. Okay, and please explain the term public facing. Be more than happy to. So public facing means that your project needs to be publicly accessible. So there needs to not be strong boundaries around whether or not someone who's not in the art world can go see it. So that doesn't mean that it has to be outside. Like we said, it could be virtual, especially considering we're still in a pandemic. It could be virtual. It just needs to be accessible. So if you're thinking to yourself, people are going to have a hard time viewing this, then it's not public facing. I feel like that's pretty good. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Nothing lasts forever. That's right.
Hey, Anj, I'm just going to chime in real quick on the public facing part. Sure. For me, it's a little bit easier to think of what it's not. It's not a grant, like a professional basics grant, for example, where it's just for you to go buy supplies to continue your practice. Like it has to be a specific thing. So the idea is that it's not just income for your practice that's happening in your basement that no one has access to. So it can be that you're a studio artist and you make kind of more traditionally artwork for exhibitions, but there has to be that exhibition component where artists can then see the thing that the grant funded for you to make.
Yes. Okay. We have another question here. For the final presentation, is there a preference for one public event over a series of public events? Great question. I would think that we would want to have one event, just in regards to administrative labor, and having to plan multiple events would probably be more difficult than planning one big event. I'm sure that's something we could think about, but I could see us just having one event, because also at that event, we're going to be announcing the next awardees, and it's just going to be this culmination of everything that's happened in the last year. And like, this is what we're doing moving forward. This is so great. So I really see it just being one event. But that's a great question.
Anj, there might be some confusion about the public facing component is not necessarily the same as the final presentation. So the thing that you're doing can happen in December, and then you will just report out to the public in this presentation format in June of what that is. So maybe it'll be more clear if you can talk more about that event, the final event at the end.
Yeah. So your project is something that's going to be happening during the award year. And at the end of the award year, you will be attending an event that we are going to plan. And then at that event, you will present your project. So you'll already be done with your project. And once you're attending this event, you'll mostly be able to just enjoy yourself, have a good time, get up there, tell the public everything you did in the last year, and just celebrate, really celebrate your accomplishments, getting this project completed. And also during the award year, if you were selected, there will be like check-ins with me. I will be able to give you like templates for your presentation. So you won't be left out in the cold on that. You'll still be working with me and getting ready for that presentation at the end of the award year. But mostly you'll be working independently. And also your project doesn't necessarily have to take a whole year. It's going to vary. Some of them are going to be sporadic. Some of them are going to happen towards the beginning, some of them towards the end. Like, it's so broad that I just see a lot of variation happening before the end of the award year. Hopefully that answers the question. Okay. Another question here. Can we be the lead applicant on one project, but also a collaborator on another project? It's a good question. It is my understanding that you could be the lead organizer on one project only, but I would assume that you could also be a collaborator on another project. That's a wraparound. I feel like that's totally like a under the radar, like you can though. You just can't be lead organizer for 2 or more projects. So get after it. Awesome. We're making really good time. Okay, we have another question here. Will the committee give feedback on the proposals that are not selected for this cycle? Yes, for our quarterly grants, we give feedback when people are not selected. So for this grant, I think it's important that we also give feedback when applicants aren't selected. I do believe we want to be a resource for our artists in this community, and that means being really transparent about why or why not you didn't get selected. So definitely, yes. All righty. Okay. Another question, could you talk a little more about scale? Okay, so what I think you mean is the size and scope of the projects. Right. I was thinking about Romy Owens, Under Her Wing. That is a great public facing art project. Now, I'm sure that that project required way more than $5,000, but that's also going to take me back to the budget. So you can get additional income. You can work in tandem with other organizations. We're not requiring a match or anything like that. But if this fund somehow is in addition to other funding for a bigger project, that is okay as well. It can't just be like, oh, I'm just funding this big project, but it's like, it needs to be directly facilitated by our funds. So if this grant is somehow the missing piece that's going to bring it all together, that's great. So it can be pretty big, but I assume if it's really big, you're going to need additional funding, and that's okay. And it can be small and it can be within the scope. I mean, as long as your budget is balanced and you're using that $5,000, we're good. But like I said, if 4,000 of that 5,000 is to pay yourself, that's not very ambitious. All right. It's another question here. If we receive a Thrive grant, will we still be eligible for future OVAC initiatives? That's a great, sorry. It's a good question. So like I said, we don't have any like stipulations for this round. So if you've been awarded in the last year for something, you can apply for this grant. Now, as we move forward, that's a discussion we're going to have. At this current moment, we don't know for sure if we are going to say, well, you just got awarded this Thrive grant, so now you can't apply for Art 365 or one of the quarterly grants or something like that. And I do want to be transparent about what the point of that is. We just want to share the love and make sure all artists are getting the opportunities they deserve. So we're not trying to be sticklers either. And we don't want to put up a bunch of boundaries and act like you can't apply, you can't apply. Like, we're willing to work with you. And sometimes if there's special cases too, like, we will work around. But at this moment, I would apply if you want to, and I wouldn't concern yourself with not being potentially able to apply for things in the future, because you always will be able to apply for things in the future, but whether or not we'll have that 1 year stipulation is still on the table.
And Anj, I'm just going to jump in on this one too. Art 365 won't overlap with this one because we're just now ending. And that's on a 3-year cycle. So our next program is going to be the Oklahoma Art Writing and Curatorial Fellowship, and then it will be Concept, and then it will be Art 365. So it'll be a few years before we get to that one again. And the next one's the Art Writing Fellowship. So there's no need for worry on that one.
That's great. But we are still in discussion about quarterly grants and Thrive grants.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe I should just decide. I guess maybe if it's for a different project, like if you're applying for a professional basics grant, that's pretty different than a Thrive grant. I just feel like our quarterly grants are so different from this program.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't feel like our programs committee made a decision on that.
Yeah.
But this is the dollar amount this is so much bigger than any of the other grants that we have. So I would assume you would want this one over the smaller quarterly grants anyway.
True. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Is there a minimum number of collaborators or just preferred to have more? There is not a minimum. You can apply as a sole organizer, but like we said, collaborations do boost those creative outcomes and you get stronger results when you collaborate. So you can do that. It might be difficult for you to have like a really strong application and project and do all that on your own, to be honest. But if you do, that's great. But I could just see you wanting collaborators. But if you have a sole idea that you can execute all by yourself, go for it. Let's see here. Okay. Answered another question there about Art 365. But yep, Crystal knows all the timelines. Cool. Great. Do we have any other questions? Yeah. And we have a pretty big group in here, but if you want, does everybody want to say where they're from real quick and just kind of go down the line? If we're open to it on, great. Okay, we're just going to put it in the chat. All right. So Angie is from Warhol. Jennifer Robertson from Norman, OK. Morgan Smith from OKC. Miriam from Tahlequah. Sasha from Tulsa. Jessica Harvey, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oh, Patrick and Christina. OKC. Paige Miller, Ardmore. Kiona, OKC. Lindsay Cox, OKC. Virginia, OKC. Got a lot of OKC. Allie from OKC. Mike, Tulsa. Lydia Moore, Tulsa. Kara Lynch, Tallahassee, Tulsa. Armgard, Pauls Valley. Deborah Martin, OKC. Lauren Rosenfeld, Norman. Shelly Cashin. Wow. Michelle Herholt. Sorry, if I'm not saying your last name, it's because I don't want to butcher it. Edmund. Grant, OKC. Amy Sanders, Tulsa. Rafael Corzo, Tulsa. Dawn is from Stillwater. Okay. Almost looks like I'm getting some repeats here. Amina, OKC, and John from OKC. So we got a lot of main metro areas, so might not get those bonus points. But as long as your application's really strong in all those other regions, I think it'll be a really good sell for you. And I think that's totally okay. No, thank you. This has been great. And I got through that presentation really, really fast. I mean, I was practicing. I was thinking there was going to be floods and floods of questions.
You were just so thorough. And
Right?
also, I think it's one of those things that as people start coming up with their ideas, that's when the questions will come up too. So
That is true.
definitely reach out to Anj anytime. She'd be happy to help you.
Yes. Does anybody not get my contact information at the end of the presentation?
You could pop it in the chat real quick.
All right. Pop it in the chat.
And also, this video will be on the website too. So if there was something you missed, you want to go back to the presentation, you'll have that.
Yeah, we're going to put a link on the website, so you can always refer back to this. Or if you know anyone, I had someone call earlier that was like, oh no, are you going to like put the call somewhere? I can't do it tonight. I'm like, no worries. It's going to be on the website. Okay.org.
Deborah, do you have a question? Oh, okay. That was your clapping. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Well, so good to see so many of your faces.
Here's my contact information. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out.
You did a great job, Anj.
Oh, thanks, Romy.
Two weeks in and killing it. She's doing an amazing job.
No, that was fantastic. I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm so grateful that you are offering this as a educational session for the grant. It's really helpful.
Yeah, no, I feel very fulfilled. Like being an artist myself, this is so important. And it makes this job even more fulfilling for me because I just can picture myself in your shoes. And I want to help you. I want to help you get this grant.
I don't know if you noticed or not, there was another question. It said, what should we have with us for the office hours, which I think would be something really good to cover right now.
That's
if you
super
don't
important.
mind.
Yeah. So I'm going to be sending you an email if you signed up for the office hour with a Zoom link to join the office hour and also with a request for you to send in your prepared materials. So the way it'll usually work is that I review your materials before we join the call. So then I can already be ready to kind of talk to you about some things that I would improve or anything that needs to be adjusted, just like some constructive feedback from my perspective. So you'll be getting an email, so just watch out for that and check your spam folders just in case. Because that'll be coming like the week before your office hour, and I just want you to send that in before we have our chat. All righty. Sorry, did I miss any other questions there? They just started flowing in. Okay. Great, I think that's everything.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining in, and yeah, reach out to me, don't hesitate. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.